My name is Henry Lawrence, counseling psychologist, and in this short video, I quickly want to talk about financial stress, depression, and suicide. Now, as we all know, the economic situation in South Africa is not looking good at the moment, and a lot of us has experienced financial stress or is currently experiencing financial stress. But there is a very strong correlation between financial stress, depression, and even suicide. This is evident, for example, when the lockdown period started, the suicide rate immediately went up in South Africa. So, and it's also very logical to think about it. If we are under financial stress, we immediately do not feel good about ourselves. But let's quickly look at depression and exactly what it's all about. So, the number one symptom for depression is feeling sad, but feeling sad all the time. A lot of us will have our down days and our up days, but when it comes to depression, it's feeling sad 24/7. And that sadness becomes more and more intense as time passes. Now, the second symptom of depression is also a struggle to concentrate and focus. You can think of depression as almost like a parasite draining your brain of energy. And a lot of people struggling with depression would notice it firstly in their job, where they struggle to concentrate and focus in a job setting. Now, this also leads to slow speech and thinking. If you think, for example, of somebody speaking in a very slow and monotone voice, that is somebody that's most likely struggling with depression. A very good example is in the comic Winnie the Pooh, the donkey Eeyore, and the way that he speaks would be very similar to somebody that's struggling with depression. Then, of course, as I said, depression can very often drain us of energy. And so another symptom of depression is a loss of interest in hobbies or any activity, as well as social gatherings. And this, of course, makes a lot of sense. If you feel depressed and you don't have energy, you especially don't have energy to engage with other people, such as at a braai. And then also, you don't have the energy or the willpower to, for example, go to the gym. So remember, when it comes to depression, this symptom must be present when, for example, somebody enjoyed going to the gym but no longer does. So it's definitely this symptom must be in the presence of where somebody enjoyed a certain activity and no longer does. Then another symptom of depression is either sleeping too much or a lack of sleep. Now, somebody struggling with depression would usually sleep a lot. But in combination with anxiety and depression, you also sometimes find that people start to struggle with insomnia. And this is, as I said, quite logical. If you have financial stress and you're worried about your financial well-being, and that leads to depression, you might find yourself lying in bed worrying the whole time and sleeping less and less. So unfortunately, sleep results in what we call a downward spiral or a downward cycle. So for example, the less you sleep, the more depressed you feel, and the more depressed you feel, the less you sleep. Or the other way around, the more depressed you feel, the more you sleep, and the more you sleep, the more depressed you feel. So it can be quite a vicious cycle. Then another symptom of depression is also eating habits. Eating is a enjoyable activity, and people tend to sometimes self-medicate with food when they're feeling depressed. So when I'm feeling depressed, I would, let's say, start to eat more to make myself feel good. A lot of people would refer to this as emotional eating. In other words, eating to make yourself feel better. Now, the opposite can also be true. Somebody that's very stressed and suffering from depression would sometimes stop eating altogether. They're so stressed that they never feel hungry. So that's also another symptom of depression. And then the very last one is anger. Now, once again, this symptom must be present when it is out of character for the person. So for example, let's say if you're feeling depressed, Another person is driving with you in the car. You somewhere, let's say you stop in the parking lot, and the person by accident closes the door just a little bit too hard, and you fly into a rage. Now, that anger comes out of nowhere, and it must be out of character for the person. And we find this a lot with people struggling with depression, that the smallest thing can set them off, and that, as I said, they just fly into a rage. So, as I've mentioned, depression can also lead to suicide, which obviously is the ultimate expression of feeling depressed. Um, Somebody who reaches a level of severe or what we would call major depression has no sense of value anymore. And this once again correlates to financial stress. If your financial problems reach a critical point, that's also when you start to say to yourself that I don't have value anymore in this world. I don't have any worth in this world anymore. And that's usually the tipping point for a lot of people to start thinking about taking their own life. In other words, they would often say things to themselves such as, well, I don't mean anything to anybody anymore. I don't have value and I don't see my situation going forward changing at all. So people that feel suicidal would completely lose hope and would say to themselves that the whole world would be better off if I took my own life. Because once again, I have nothing to contribute to the world, to my family, to my friends, etc. When somebody reaches a point where they feel suicidal, they will start to completely isolate themselves. Or when they do have contact with people, they would often talk about taking their own life or talking about ways in which they can take their own life. Now, this is also very interesting because what they will do is they'll say, like, you know what, sometimes I feel like just driving my car into a wall. And then when their friends or their family say, well, like, what are you talking about? They'll be like, ah, no, no, I'm just making a joke. But jokes like that sometimes do have meaning. And if a person starts to increasingly make jokes like that, that's probably saying something and should be taken seriously. Also, when people start to feel suicidal, as I said, they've reached an intense level of feeling depressed, and sometimes they'll complain of intense physical and emotional pain. So they would be so depressed that it would actually literally hurt. So when somebody reaches a point like this, I would strongly advise anybody watching this video and who feels as though they might be feeling severely depressed or feel as though they're toying with the idea of taking their life, I would strongly advise anybody like this to seek help. Um, Whether you can afford a mental health professional, or if you don't have the finances, you can Google SADAG, SADAG, which stands for the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. And they have a free, toll-free telephone line, and that you can contact somebody and just get the necessary help. South Africa also has, if you Google the suicide hotline number, you can also speak to somebody there that can help you. And I will definitely post all those details in the description box below. Also, for somebody, friends or family members who feel as though you have a friend or a family member that subscribes perhaps to some of these symptoms, especially to the if you feel that this person might be suicidal, once again I would ask you to encourage them to seek professional help. One of the problems with depression and suicide is, as I said, these people have reached such a low emotional level that they often don't feel as though they have the energy or the willpower to seek help. They have become hopeless and feel that there's no way out. So these people will often not seek help. And therefore, as I said, I would encourage anybody who has a friend or a family member that you feel might be suffering from depression, please encourage them to seek professional help. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you need any further information, if you want to get hold of me, you can do so at my website. All my contact details on my website at lawrence-psychologist.co.za. If you enjoyed the video, please follow me on YouTube and Facebook as I regularly post new content.